Welcome, one and all, to a brand new Into the Breach Unfair Difficulty Guide, this time with the Blitzkrieg. They are one of the squads of all time, and they have some serious issues that make unfair difficulty unfairly difficult for them. We've got the lightning mech, the hook mech, and the boulder mech. The boulder mech is a ranged class, does decent damage, and it has some forced movement, as well as providing a obstacle. The hook mech is incapable of doing any damage and can only move other things or itself, and then the lightning mech has no forced movement ability and just does damage. So, similar to the Zenith Guard, they've got some issues we're going to need to work through. So I'm looking at what the islands are giving me here. We've got the Spider Leader on Archive. We've got Exploding Scions on RST with very tough enemies. Pinnacle has got Mosquitoes, relative weak enemies, and the Bouncer Leader. And Detritus has the Extra Health Scion, the Blobber Leader. So I know that my biggest issue is, I'm going to have to be doing damage. So I can't pick a first island that has very tough enemies, because then the lightning mech will just be doing nothing. So it's usually a good idea to pick where the leapers are. I decided to go with Pinnacle because Pinnacle also has the robot enemies, which are easily destroyed by the lightning mech. And I see that I've got a little bit of bad luck here, because Pinnacle forces you to do a mission. And that mission here is Destroy the Boom Bots, which we have not seen so far on this series. It's a very chaotic mission, and generally it is not favorable to the player. Certainly not favorable for a 40k perfect run, because the boom bots themselves have a death throw. They self-destruct and are very prone to damaging the grid around them. So, I know I didn't really have any delusions of getting a 40k on this particular run. Blitzkrieg, again, is a squad that requires, a really well-rolled pilot to give them an edge. And once again, we just have a fresh Ralph Carlson in the lightning mech. So I can see we've got the 2 boom bots, we've got 2 leapers, 2 mosquitoes, one of which is an alpha. So if the stars align properly, the lightning mech can do a lot of damage. It chains its damage through adjacent characters, be they friend or foe. Starts doing 2 damage, and you can upgrade it to do 3 damage, but that's as far as it goes. And then there's another upgrade that we will see later on in the run that is also pretty significant for the lightning mech. The hook mech has the armored trait. It is one of only 2 mechs that have armored natively. This helps it be a little bit tanky, and also lets it kind of plug in holes in a chain for the lightning mech. And similarly, the boulder mech's boulders can also be used to chain the lightning attack. So we have multiple threats to the grid. The leaper and the 2 boom bots. And also, in dying, the boom bots are a threat to the grid. But I didn't really see very many good options here. Unfortunately, I can't get the leaper with the lightning bolt chain, but I can if I maneuver the boulder mech. So I'm setting the grapple mech up for the assist, and then as you can see, there's a big chain of damage, but we take some collateral damage. That was kind of inevitable. And then using the hook mech, I can get the boulder mech in position to at least keep, what's left of the grid from being destroyed. And now we only have 1 boombot left to deal with, so hopefully we are on track to finish this mission off as cleanly as possible. But we're going to need to start repairing the grid health ASAP on this run. The hook mech sometimes can really struggle. There are occasions where it literally can take no useful actions. And because of this, we will be very keen to get a different weapon on the hook mech, be it a brute class weapon or honestly any other class if we have the spare cores. The boulder mech is pretty decent, and I usually don't invest too heavily into it. The boulder weapon is just kind of pretty good on its own. It only has one upgrade for increasing the damage from 2 to 3. And then the lightning mech really enjoys getting a secondary weapon to give it some forced movement options, or a pilot that gives them some other forced movement options, such as Herald, like we saw in the previous run. Looks like Ralph gets his early level up. That's the thing he does, and it's invulnerable. So, not the greatest roll, but, you know, it's fine. We'll take it. And our final turn is 3 scarabs. I believe we can deal with all of them. The boulder will get us a 2-for-1 move, but really it's just to solve that one alpha scarab. The hook mech's hook attack is a pull, but unlike the defense mech's attraction pulse, it cannot function against adjacent enemies. And instead of pulling one space, it'll just pull whatever you're shooting it at directly adjacent to the hook mech. You can also shoot it at the grid or mountains, and it will pull the hook mech adjacent to them. So it's kind of a forced movement tool and a mobility tool. It's just kind of finicky. I decided to put Ralph in the hook mech because the hook mech is prone to taking damage, and since Ralph is invulnerable, it doesn't matter if the hook mech is destroyed. And I want to get some other pilots in the seat for the lightning mech. It is usually the best source of experience, since it focuses just on getting kills. So now I'm considering my options. I definitely need to get the grid health back online. So I decided to take this easy mission here. All I have to do is to protect the power generator. We've got some buildings shielded for us. Our OP4 includes, you know, a leaper and a regular mosquito. They will die, in theory, to one strike from the lightning whip. There's also a couple of frozen robots on the map, but again, we're not too worried about those. The lightning mech is, you know, pretty good at clearing them out. My main concern is getting webbed, but with this particular deployment array, only the lightning mech would get whipped. And my reasoning was that, in theory, there would be other adjacencies and we could start a chain. Look at that. My prediction was correct. And indeed, we will be able to do a pretty decent little chain here, getting damage on the Alpha Scarab, freeing that one robot, but it's honestly fine. And Boulder Mech can finish off that Leaper for the assist. So we've got a pretty clean first round here on this mission. But we will have a functional 4v3, as we will have to deal with both robots. Also, that pesky regen scion, it will routinely give us a little bit of a headache over the course of this island. So, pretty straightforward turn. We're down to a 3v3. I believe the presence of the hostile robots counts against the math for making more Vex spawns, which is nice. And then, yeah, you can see It wants to get us back to 6 enemies on the board, so we've got 3 new spawns. We don't have to worry too much about that mosquito since the grid is shielded. I can focus more on clearing out the enemies. But, you know, protect the grid if you can. You never know when you'll need that shield. And then on our final turn, thanks to spawn blocking, we will be down to a 2v3, so we should have sufficient actions to close out the rest of the round. Both enemies only have 1 HP. So that's 2 missions down for Pinnacle, and we will have repaired the damage we took on the last mission. It would be nice to get a little bit more grid health to top us off. So now I am considering our next mission. We've got knock mites off the mechs, with the cryo mines on the board. Usually helpful, usually somewhat favors the player. So it looks like I'm going to commit. Though I do consider my other options. I don't like kill 6 or fewer enemies, especially with the Blitzkrieg, because the lightning mech's only real option early in the run is to do damage and to kill. And against multiple weak enemies, you might rack up those 6 kills very quickly. And now we've got a quite lively board. 6 enemies, only 5 of which are capable of directly threatening us. So we're on a 5v3 at the beginning, and we're hoping that these cryo mines will help shore up our action disadvantage. Trying to deploy my mechs in such a way that the enemy will either freeze themselves or, you know, freeze themselves trying to target the grid nearby. I am not so fortunate. Sometimes the enemy gets wise. We only get 2 frozen Vec and 3 threats to the grid. So 3 threats to the grid and 3 mech actions. Can we, you know, can we bring it home? Can we make the magic work? I think we could have, honestly. Let's see how I do. Sometimes my memory gets a little hazy. So I can kill that leaper. That's good. Now, I think there's a misplay here. Oh, no, there isn't. Okay. And then I can get damage on 2 enemies and clear the mites off the hook mech with friendly fire. So the next round, we are at a 2v3. Now, on these sorts of rounds where you have the action advantage, you want to try and get the mites off of at least one of the mechs if you can. Assuming 2 of them can deal with the threats on the board. So hook mech can get at least one of the scarabs out of position. Probably not that one, though. That one's going to have to, I think, fall to the boulder mech to deal with. So I don't quite have enough damage, thanks to that regen scion. But I can freeze one of them, which is always helpful. And that gives the lightning mech a spare action to clear off the mites. The next turn, we are back to 3v3. With two Vec targeting the same grid tile, always a irritating thing to see. The boulder mech is in some trouble here. I think I can free it with the hook mech. But then that means it's up to the lightning mech and the boulder mech to try and save the grid, and I'm running out of turns to save the boulder mech. And as you can see, I was trying to see if I could save it with the lightning mech, but the boulder mech only has 2 HP, and I would fry it. Apologies, there was a minor issue with my Switch. The controller was losing signal. If you're familiar with the Nintendo Switch, I'll let you guess whether or not my controller has Joy-Con drift. So I have to make an unpleasant choice here. In order to save the grid as much as I can, I'm going to also be freeing 2 of the frozen Vec. So we will be freeing a Alpha Mosquito and a Leaper. I wasn't terribly happy with this course of events, but the grid health is, very important. So we had to get that Scarab out of the way. And no one else really could deal with it. So now we're on to the final turn, and I think we have a somewhat tragic course of events here. Sometimes unfair difficulty does us an unfairness. Ralph, in the hook mech, cannot act and cannot move. But we can at least solve the problems over there. Ralph is killed, but it doesn't matter because he is invulnerable. But that unfortunately means I can do nothing to save the poor pilot of the boulder mech. The only silver lining is that in dying, the Vecmites will be knocked off. So we are still on par for a perfect island reward. We are just down a pilot now. Hate to see it. Rest in pasta, Sergei. We will never forget you. Now our grid has been topped off. And now that I've got a dead pilot, I will actually take Ralph out of the hook mech and put him in the boulder mech so that he at least has a chance to get some more XP. The hook mech very rarely ever has an opportunity to get kills. And leaving the hook mech just controlled by a baseline AI is fine. It just means it's that much more expendable. So for my final mission, rather than do the kill 6 enemies or less, I take defend the robot factories. This mission type can be chaotic, it can be bad, but I figure since we are the Blitzkrieg, we have enough, easily dispersed damage that we can hopefully handle any flood of hostile robot population. We've got a functional 4v3, not the worst thing in the world, at least for this first turn. And we finally get our time pod. Fingers crossed it's a pilot. We have a stroke of decent luck here. The lightning mech can kill 3 mechs for 1, essentially. The alpha leaper will burn to death. So we can deal with the alpha scarab. I think I would have gone for the spawn block with the boulder if I did this again, because the mosquito would still just do 1 damage to that scarab, and who cares? But instead we have another alpha scarab to deal with now. But between the lightning mech and the boulder mech, I think we can handle the situation. I just need to be judicious with my forced movement. I can block a spawn and then sufficiently weaken one of these scarabs to be destroyed. And we can just grab that time pod. For this next turn, we will have 2 hostile robots and 2 hostile Vex, so we're at another, call it 4v3. At least the robots are the cannon bots. They're the perhaps least dangerous variety. The laser ones are irritating in that their projectiles cannot be blocked. And then the rocket bots, you know, fire a 3-tile wide arcing projectile, which is bad news bears. But we have sufficient actions to keep the grid protected. But we'll still be at a 4v3 on our final turn. The game only threatens 2 of the grid tiles, though, so small bit of mercy. Oh, it looks like Jill leveled up. I missed that. I believe Jill just got skilled, which is fantastic. Jill is one of the low-key heroes of this run. So now we are on to the boss fight. The bouncer leader. Alas, we do not get a pilot. Instead, we get stabilizers, which is a passive that's okay. If it didn't cost a power core, I think I would be more of a fan. For the cost of a power core, not taking damage for blocking Vex spawns is more of a just a minor quality of life sort of vanity upgrade. I do briefly consider equipping it, but I've only got 1 core. And there is one upgrade that I consider perhaps the most key upgrade to the baseline kit of the Blitzkrieg, and that would be for the lightning mech. It's usually a good idea to start investing into the lightning mech anyway, because eventually you'll want the damage upgrade on the electric whip. Assuming you don't find a replacement weapon, you just need more damage. So I'm looking at the map, and I'm considering my opponents, and this is why I'm, kind of taking a while to decide, because I'm trying to figure out if I want the building chain or not. The building chain lets the grid count as, valid targets to chain the lightning whip through, and I decide to make the call. I almost always will put my first core into the building chain. It really extends the reach of the lightning mech. It lets you kind of pull some really unorthodox angles to attacking. It also opens up some interesting options for baiting the Vec. If you know they're going to be targeting a certain grid tile, you can set the lightning mech close to it with the expectation to try and fry, multiple foes. So, looking at this op4, I know the bouncer leader attacks a 3-grid row on its attack. So I can predict that it's going to attack the corporate tower and the lightning mech. So I position the hook mech such that it can pull the bouncer leader out of the way. Interestingly, my prediction is not fully correct. It just attacks the corporate tower, which is weird. And here I face an unpleasant decision. believe I lack sufficient actions to save everything. You see, you have to be careful with the building chain. I have to move the boulder mech out of the way or else it would be destroyed. So I can kill the 2 weaklings, get a point of damage on the boss, which is armored. So I can only do 1 damage to it at a time. And then I use the boulder mech to finish off that leaper, protecting the 2 grid building. But I sacrificed the 1 grid building to that mosquito. I did not have sufficient actions to deal with it. We get the regen scion, which is a problem, because even though the bouncer leader does not have a lot of health, we can really only do, small amounts of chip damage to it at a time. So we really can't afford to have it regenerating its health. And my mechs are in general a little bit out of position. They are on the, western side of the board, the lightning mech and the boulder mech. So I need to kind of get myself into a better position. At least I can start blocking some spawns, and thanks to the building chain, we can dispose of that scion. I elect to block spawns with the boulder mech, which is a useful skill to use, a little trick to take advantage of. And then we can get a little bit of friendly fire on that alpha mosquito. Next turn, we are looking at a 3v3. It looks like it will be up to the hook mech to foil that scarab's attack. And thanks to the friendly fire, the mosquito is weakened enough such that the boulder mech can dispose of the mosquito. And that means that we can keep the Vec block going on the lightning mech and get a little bit of extra damage on it on the bouncer leader. I'm also lucky in that the bouncer leader will push itself back, block a spawn, and take a damage. So that was a lucky turn. And on our final turn, we will have a 3v3. And if the stars align, we can finish off the bouncer leader and secure our perfect island reward. So this is an interesting little solve I come up with here. I can position the hook mech directly behind the bouncer leader and it will kill itself. And then we can dispose of that scarab, and thanks to the building chain, we can keep the grid defended. So you can see how important that upgrade is. If I did not invest in the grid chain, I would have suffered more damage in that fight. But we are still doing pretty good on grid health, and we have secured our perfect island reward. So we have the guided missile and Camilla Vera. Now, guided missile, as you've seen before, really good brute class weapon, and I was very tempted to take it for the hook mech just to give it more options. Instead, I am hoping to see another weapon option, and I take Camilla Vera. Camilla is very good, especially when webbing Vec are in play. So I make the choice. I do some pilot shuffling. I think I decide to put Camilla in the lightning mech to give her more XP. We put Jill in the hook mech. Skilled is a great trait to have on the hook mech. Gives it more XP so it can be more tanky and lets it move more. And my gamble pays off, baby. We get the phase cannon. Phase cannon is an amazing brute class weapon. It's got offense, it's got utility. It is fantastic. I consider it at least A tier for the brute class weapons. Possibly S tier. And for all of the weapons in the entire game overall, I think it's solidly A tier. So I sell the stabilizers. I'm just not going to get much value out of those. Invest the rest in cores. We can equip the phase cannon, and importantly, we can activate the phase shield upgrade. That is key. If you watched my test video, my very earliest video, I think we had the phase cannon. Then the last core, I invest in the lightning mech. I put it into move for now. Camilla's talent is essentially mobility focused, so giving her more movement is handy. And that will conclude Pinnacle. We'll see how I do on the next island. Like and subscribe!